recap how he thought the defense played against Fresno State, and then we'll take some questions.
Yeah, from a defensive perspective, I thought our defense played really well. As a defense, we always have goals that we have set as far as what we want to accomplish, whether it be regarding our play in the red zone, our performance as far as stopping the run, just different aspects of the defensive game. We have goals for every single one of them, and we met most of them for the most part. But there were a few that we missed, and so obviously that's obvious sign of room for improvement. There were a few plays that we wish we could have had back. But for the most part, at least for myself personally, I was satisfied with the defensive performance, and I think that the coaches were too. It's been a while since we've beat Fresno State, especially at their house, so it was nice to be able to go in there and get a win. It was a good win for our program, a good win for our team, especially with the big week that we got coming up here this week against Boise. But I think we played well against Fresno State, and there are ways to improvement and to tighten up some screws on our defense, but we played good.
You guys planned, or at least had heard, that they might start this other quarterback, but then he played. Did it change things? I mean, did you have to adjust a little bit more, but maybe the chance that he could run the ball maybe a little bit more than some of the other quarterbacks or whatever?
I don't think it changed our schemes at all. I think that their identity is pretty set as far as what they've been doing so far for the first few games. Yes, this quarterback on the film has ran the ball more than he's thrown the ball, but I don't think that changed much of our mindset as far as what we plan to do going into the game. And when we got there, it wasn't anything different. I mean, that didn't change our matchups at all. It really just one different guy, and so I don't think it changed anything for us.
I think your defense is like 18th in the country, if I saw something very highly ranked. Why? Why does Utah State have a good defense, and what are you doing to make it good?
Honestly, I don't think it's anything new. I think that we've prided ourselves in stopping the run for quite some time. It hasn't been something that we've just decided, okay, this year we want to really focus on doing this or doing that. It's something that has kind of progressed over the years, and we've always built this program on having a very stout and solid defense, all the way back to the times when Bobby Wagner was here. And ever since then, it's only gotten better. And I think that we will continue to get better because that is the focus of stopping the run. And so I think that's what makes us so successful, and that's why we have been successful, is we've been stopping the run, forcing teams to be one-dimensional and pass the ball. And once we get into that game plan, I think we make it pretty easy for the coaches to call the plays and for us to do what we need to do to stop the passing game as well.
What does it take then to be a good rushing defense? What are the keys to making that? I mean, do you have to be real physical? I mean, talk a little bit about that.
I think a lot of it has to do with physicality, yes. I think the front seven is big. Having great playmakers in the backside as far as our linebackers. I mean, we have great linebackers. Everybody in the country knows. I know that. And then our defensive line, I think that's absolutely essential. It's impossible for our linebackers to get to the ball if our defensive line isn't doing what we're supposed to do. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just our front seven, making sure that defensive line is stout and opening up holes to make sure that the linebackers are free to roam through those.
Would you go through the play call and the play on the safety?
What was that?
Would you go through the play call and the play on the safety?
Oh, Marwin Evans? Is that who you're referring to? Oh, man, he came up big time this past game. He's always been a physical guy coming up, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the play calls as well. I mean, obviously, regardless of how good the play is, we still need players to make plays, and that's what Marwin did. But I think the play calls that were called at the time where he made those plays were absolutely perfect. Couldn't have been any better. It freed him up, and he came through and made some big hits. And you guys saw that safety. That safety was great for us. Wish we could have turned that into a touchdown with David Mwala, but that's all right. It was fun to be in that atmosphere and to see him perform like the way that he did in that game.
What was the actual call on? What do you call on a play like that in that kind of situation?
Honestly, I don't know. I have no idea what goes through Coach Clune's mind, but whatever goes through it, I'm glad that it does, because it seems like he always calls the right call when we need it.
Ricky, there's been no doubt that you guys have been very solid defensively this year, but how extra solid are you going to have to be to have an opportunity to beat Boise State this week?
Honestly, I don't think that it's going to be any different than any other game. I mean, we understand the opponent that we're facing, and we're not taking it lightly. But we're also not going to change our mindset as far as we have to practice extra harder or we have to play extra harder. I mean, that's something that's already expected of us. We feel that we should already be practicing hard, already playing hard. So it's not anything that we're going to call extra of ourselves. I think it's just going to come down to the fundamentals, the basics, making sure that we are technically sound and doing our job. I think that's the most important thing when you're playing a team like Boise. Just making sure that whatever your job or your responsibility is for that particular play, making sure that you do that and trusting that your other teammates will do the same. Because I think that that's where Boise capitalizes. Any one mishap from the defense, they find a way to capitalize and get big runs and sometimes even score off of it. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that we're being disciplined on all sides of the ball. But for the defense, just making sure we're disciplined on the D-line, linebackers, and the back end, and making sure that we fly to the ball.
They really had to hurt your pride, though, last year defensively with what they did. Is there, I mean, when you talk about revenge factor or coming back, what does that mean this game after what happened last year?
I don't know if revenge is the right word, because, I mean, just for me personally, I've noticed how sometimes that can cloud your responsibilities as far as what you're supposed to do here and kind of override everything, and sometimes drain you mentally because you just want to do something so bad. And so, I mean, yeah, I do remember it. I remember it very vividly, and it's very fresh in my mind. But I don't think we're going in the mindset that, oh, we got to kill them back this year because of what they did to us last year. No, I think that we're a much more mature defense, and we definitely want to prove, and we know that, if we want to reach our goal of the Mountain West Championship, that road it goes through Boise. And I think every team in the nation knows that Boise is a good team, and there's someone that shouldn't be taken lightly, and that's for sure something that we're not doing. We take them very seriously, but I don't think that we're going to go into that mindset of such as we need to get revenge on them. I think it's just we're going to take it as it is any other game, because that's what it is. It's just another game, and that's how we're going to go into the game, and we're going to prepare exactly how we prepared for every other team, and we're going to be ready to play fast and physical.
You signed here like 2009.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You didn't enroll for a few years.
Yes.
What was the reason for that?
2009, I signed with Coach Anderson, and when I had participated in fall camp that year, and then after fall camp had completed, I found out I was ineligible, and so I ended up taking some online courses to get eligible. And once I was able to get eligible, I went on a mission from 2010 to 2012 to Oklahoma. I returned in 2012, and I signed back with Utah State at the end of 2012, and I want to say early December, just before Coach Anderson departed.
Was there something you said once about in Oklahoma? Did you meet Josh Heupel, or did you see him, or was it?
No, I've never.
I thought you said
No.
something like that once or something.
No, I've never met Coach Heupel.
You hadn't met him before.
No.
Ricky, how satisfying being against Fresno State, both offensively, defensively? You were able to play a lot of guys that normally don't get to play, not just special teams, they were able to play at the end of the game. And how satisfying was it to see them get an opportunity to be in the spotlight a little bit?
It's always satisfying. I remember being in their very position of always wanting to be in the game, but knowing that I had to earn my stripes and earn my way on the field. And so it's nice to be able to see those guys get out there and not just be out there, but to actually make plays too. That's always refreshing to see young guys, because, I mean, that does a lot for those young guys of being able to be in there and play against a program like Fresno State, and for them to be able to perform at a high level like the way that they did. That boosts their confidence and allows them to know that, hey, I do belong at this level. I can perform, and I can make plays for the team and contribute. So it was very refreshing. It was very satisfying for the whole team, very, very much so. And that plane ride home was very sweet, for sure.
Your brother's going to come here too, right?
Yes.
Like next year. Or,
He'll be
well,
here. He'll enroll in January,
Yeah.
so he'll be here for the spring.
And he's an offensive lineman.
Yes, he's an offensive lineman.
Anything else for Ricky? center Austin Stevens. Austin will recap the Fresno State game and how he thought the offense played, and then we'll take some questions.
All right, from an offensive standpoint, I think we played really well. We kind of started out slow in that first quarter, but once we got things rolling, we really started to pick it up in the second quarter, and then from there on out, we started rolling and we played really well. But there's obviously every game there's some things to fix and go back to the drawing board on. But overall, from an offensive standpoint, I think we played really well, and it's nice to see. And I think we got some momentum rolling into this game going into Boise. Another great team. We got to be prepared to play, but I think as an offensive standpoint, we had an awesome day, and we can always get better. So I think it was a good day for us.
Austin, you guys really, like you said, you played well in the second quarter, but third quarter as well. I'm looking over the drives here on the game stats. You guys scored touchdowns in 5 of your 6 drives, spanning the second and third quarter. Just how satisfying was it to put together a string of touchdowns like that?
Yeah, that's always nice. You know, the last couple weeks we've been really emphasizing red zone offense, and we haven't been scoring touchdowns down in the red zone. But this week, our defense did a great job on setting us up and getting turnovers for us down there. And so it made our job really easy, and get the ball on the inside the 10 a few times. I mean, that's just really good for an offense and really easy to punch it in. So to be able to score touchdowns instead of field goals is really important, and that's one of our goals each week, is to hit a certain percentage of what we do down there in the red zone to get a certain amount of points. So to be able to punch in touchdowns is always nice for an offense to do, and it makes for a good day. So that was nice to do finally.
Did you see Devontae go over the fence, and then you were down there trying to get him back in, right?
Yeah, I saw him go over, but I was trying to help him up, but I don't think we were gonna. I tried to. The barriers weren't coming undone, so I couldn't get him over. So he just had to walk down. So yeah, he kind of just jumped over there, and he was all right. Yeah. So the momentum just took him that way. So he's all right.
What's it? Go ahead. I was just going to say, the last couple of games, the coaches have kind of talked about this. You got the 5 guys, but kind of Wysocki's kind of been a little bit into the mix, mixing in a little bit for different people. And it doesn't seem to mix in for you. I think you play most of the time. But what is that? Do you feel like it's more solid now that Tyshawn's come back and the offensive line's back more together?
Yeah, I mean, it's always we have 5 guys, but you know, Ben is in there to take a breather for some of us that need a breather, you know, because playing 70 plays in a row can get tiring. But for us, we believe in those 6 guys, and so whoever's in there, we're going to roll with that, and we're going to be able to still do us. But there's really no difference for whether we have him rolling in or not. We're going to have whoever's in there, we're going to play together, and that's what I think we've done the last 2 games now, is we're starting to play together as a group, and we're starting to come along nice. So I think it's good for us to have 6 guys that can rotate in, just to give us a little breather to take some off for a game. So that's nice to have.
What do you see in the progression of running into major time?
I think that we're going to keep rolling. We got 2 good backs back there. They're really good. And so for us to be a good run team, that's what we need. We need those 2 guys to step up, and they've stepped up nice the last few games here for us. So it's nice to see, and I think it's just going to keep going up from here. From a run game standpoint, I think we're starting to find our momentum, and that's what we need. And we need the momentum to keep rolling, and we got to play good against Boise, and we're going to have to find a run game against Boise, a team that's just like Utah with a very good front 7, very stout. And so for us, we have to run the football, and we gotta be able to do that. So I think it's good for us right now.
Yeah, Austin, there's no denying the offensive strides you guys made the last couple of weeks, but it is a different beast well offensively against a defense like that?
I don't know if it's motivation so much. It's a challenge for us. It's going to be, again, on the front seven. On both sides of the football, we're going to have to stop the run and we're going to have to run the football. And so for us, and that's a challenge for us this week as a group, and we're going to take that under our wing and put that on our shoulders, and we're going to prepare just like we do every week, and we're going to have things that we're going to have up, and we're going to be ready to roll. And so I think it's just another normal week for us. It's nothing new. We know that Boise's going to be good. We know that they always are. The road through Boise or to the Mountain West goes through Boise. We know that. And so we're going to be ready to roll, and I think it's a good challenge for us. So it's another good front seven team, just like Utah was, in the second week. They're going to be good, and we know that. So we'll be ready to roll.
What do you remember about last year's game with Boise State? What comes to mind, and first play of the game, you guys had a run that almost scored, and then after that, it was a long time until the offense got much after that.
Yeah, we were young last year. They were a physical bunch. They're a good, really good defense. They're coached well. They play well. They play hard. They're just like our defense, where they're going to run to the football and they're going to gang tackle and they're going to do all that. So we know that, and we know what last year's game was like. But this year we're a new team. We have a new identity. We're not the same team as last year. So we gotta prepare, and we gotta work this week and put on our hard hats and go to work out there, and we'll be ready to give them our best shot.
Explain what's going on out there. You're making calls. You're pointing at different people.
Yeah.
What's
so
your responsibility?
my responsibility is just to get everyone on the same page, pretty much. So I make who we're working to. Just those kind of things. I just get us. My goal is to get all five of us playing together, because when you have five guys on the offensive line playing together as one, we're going to have a really good week. But if you have guys that aren't playing together and not playing as a group, it's really hard at the offensive line position. We have to have five guys playing together as one, and that's our goal each week, is to play five as one. And when we do that, we have a really good week. But if we're not all on the same page, or if I mess something up, then we're going to be the play's going to be busted, just because they're listening to me, and so that's it's a big job for me.
The pointing means we're coming after you, or does it mean something else?
No, that's just stuff that we do. So.
All right. Well, it was a good win Saturday night on the road. I think anytime you win on the road, it's very good. I was proud of our players for the fact that I thought, one of the things we talked about was playing physical and playing fast, starting fast, right out of the gate. And I thought we did that. When you go on the road, you have to create your own energy and your own juice. And that was a big point for us during the day before and really the day of, to talk about that. Small section of Aggie faithful with family and a few friends and all that. But, man, when you go on the road and you make big plays or you make good plays, you don't have the crowd cheering you and getting you fired up. And so I think that's important to do that. And our guys did that. And, that stretch right there, kind of back to back to back, right at the end of the second quarter, kind of served as a big blow to them and a boost for us from the safety to going into 2-minute offense and scoring on the tunnel screen to Devontae. I thought, to put us up, give us 9 points. It was basically a 2-possession ball game at that point, and then that created it, all the way to 29-7 at that point. So. Big boost for us and a great win. Got to play a lot of guys in the fourth quarter. In fact, almost the whole fourth quarter, which was good to be able to play those guys, as well as rest a lot of the starters really for a quarter. So that was good, especially going on to a short week. So with that comes the Broncos. another talented version of the Bronco football team, football program. This year's no different. You see a true freshman quarterback and see some of the things that Rippon does is, he's really good. It's the second true freshman quarterback we've seen, and this one can make all the throws. He's headsy, very, very accurate, and of course he's got a great surrounding cast around him, a veteran O-line. He's played a lot of football together, talented wideouts, a deep running back field, but talented wideouts out on the perimeter, and a group of tight ends where I don't think they get the credit they deserve. Being an ex-tight end coach or a former tight end coach, all the multiplicity that they do within their offense and that tight end scheme to me is makes them very versatile, but it makes it they can do a lot of the same stuff and given it different presentations. With you have a lot of tight ends that can do jobs of receivers and jobs of running backs. So those guys are very interchangeable, and they do a good job. I think that's the group that doesn't get enough credit. I think they're always good at tight end. Boise does a nice job of developing those guys. And then, you watch them defensively. Dante's an NFL corner, in my opinion. His hips, comes out of breaks very, very well. The guy can flat play. Kamale is, I think he and Fackrell are they're game changers on the edge. I mean, those are boundary linebackers that you have to account for in the run game and your pass protections every single time. And he has the ability to single-handedly change a game, in my opinion, which makes him a major threat, which makes him he's one of the best defenders in the league. I don't think there's any question. Their whole linebacker crew is very, very good. You look at Vallejo and Weaver and the way they interchange Chaz out there. He's kind of a nickel field guy and all that. But those guys are really good players with their veterans that have played a lot of ball. Again, they've got a veteran football team. Tyler Horn's back after sitting out last year or most of last year. And that guy can play. Blue-collar, tough guy. A lot of respect for this program. It'll be a major challenge for us, one that I know we're up for, one that we're excited about because of, not only what type of program they are and the fact that we haven't beaten them yet since we've been in this league, but the fact that the winner is in the driver's chair, the driver's seat for the Mountain Division. And simply that, nothing more, nothing less. It's not the championship game. It's a big game, but it basically puts the winner in the driver's seat. So that's why it's important, no question. So excited for the challenge. A lot of respect for that program, their staff. Brian Harsin, his staff, and what they do schematically makes you have to rethink a lot of things that you do, especially in the run game and protection-wise on offense. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for some questions. It's hard to say. Now you get me in the comparison game. When you go backwards, I think Washington was fairly balanced. I know Utah is fairly balanced, and I think that's been borne out to be, two pretty good teams. And Boise's good. I mean, they're very good on both sides of the ball. So, I think it's safe to say that so far in our league but it's hard. I mean, Utah seems like a year ago right now, so it's hard for me to compare that.
Matt, your defense is ranked pretty well despite playing some pretty good teams. It's the simplistic way to answer. Why is your defense playing so well? Why are you a good defensive team?
I think we got good football players. I think we've recruited well. I think we've developed them well. I think Kevin Clune has come in and done a nice job with keeping the same scheme and yet tweaking it to his flavor, and not only to his flavor but the flavor of our players. And I said that in preseason that would be a key. But you recruit good players and you develop good players. Usually you play pretty well. And the credit goes to those players over there. We got really good defenders, and I think we've stepped up our play at safety. I think our safeties have played better. That was a concern in the offseason just because you lost a lot of experience with those two guys. And then the D-line I thought is held up to be pretty stout and pretty good, and that was a concern, especially after the car wreck.
Ricky talked about the physicality being a key. Is that stressed in your program?
Absolutely. I mean, I think.
Maybe not just the defense, but especially the defense.
Well, I think we want to be a physical program, but to me, you don't sit behind a mic or you don't sit up behind a podium and say we're going to be a physical program without going out and finding ways to run the football and finding ways to stop the run. And I think that tells teams that you're a physical program. But I think you can be out on the perimeter too, whether it's DBs and how they fit up now screens and force screens and bubble screens and how you block, forces and nows and bubbles and all that stuff out on the perimeter. I think there were some examples that we showed yesterday in the team meeting of our wide receivers being very physical with balls thrown out on the perimeter, bubble screens thrown out on the perimeter. And I thought they did a good job against Fresno.
Isn't that exactly those kind of things you're talking about, those kind of plays? Then you throw in the fly sweep, and that's what Boise does so well.
Yeah.
But then last year, Ajayi was just unstoppable in your game. And
Yeah.
McNichols close to him? I mean,
I think
stat-wise, at least getting touchdowns, he's getting those this year.
Yeah, I think they've got a full complement of backs that do a nice job. But when you take the fly sweep series, it's a nice little tripod there.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There.
My bad. You take the fly sweep series with all the throws out on the perimeter. Basically, what it's trying to do is they try to create numbers games, it's you're in numbers, so is the defenses. They're trying to outnumber you and trying to out leverage you. So all the stuff on the perimeter, whether it's fly sweeps or it's throws that are force screens or bubble screens or whatever you want to call them, that's all meant so you don't have to block 9 guys. I mean, it's based on numbers and it's based on leverage of defenders. And so you're trying to get easy pitches and catches when the numbers dictate it and when the leverage dictates it. And they do a lot of that stuff.
He said in his media conference yesterday that the Aggies' approach on defense they do a lot of things, and it makes you spend time to get ready for it.
Sounds like what I just said.
Yeah, and in a short week, that's tough. Now, when you guys go about designing this defense, or whenever it happened years ago, is that a feature that you say, let's do a lot of different things and make people prepare longer for us?
Well, I think it's things that you do offensively and defensively, schematically, that you try to create numbers advantages, leverage advantages, and the smarter players that you have and the more things that you can do very multiple from a presentation standpoint, but yet keep the same base schemes, make it look very, very multiple to opposing coordinators or players. So we try to do that on offense and defense, and quite frankly, we're very similar to them in both sides of the ball. There's, I think we both want to be multiple, and they're going to play with pace, and we're going to play with elements of pace. And they're odd front, stemming to even front, stemming from even to odd, and their man pressures and their zone pressures, and they're doing the same thing we're doing on defense. Very, very similar schemes on both sides.
Coach Wells, even as well as you played offensively against Colorado State, red zone production's been a little bit it's been up and down a little bit this season, but that
It was definitely up this week.
It was definitely 5 for 5 in the red zone.
6 for 6. You're reading the official stats, which were wrong, but we got them corrected now.
So how big of a step did you take forward?
Right. See that SID staff? We've beefed up our numbers back there. We were 6 for 6, though.
So just how big of a step forward was that?
It was a really big step forward in the confidence factor for our guys. And, I can attribute it to one thing. We ran the ball well. Ran the ball in the red zone. We were good on first down. We ran the ball well. That's why we didn't fall behind the chains, and we found ways to run the football in. So we didn't throw it in, and I don't think it was from, throwing and protecting. It was being able to run the ball on first down.
Is it fair to say that Kent Myers played, when you went back and evaluated, one of his better games as far as managing Because, I mean, it always seems like we've relied on him to run the ball or do something with his legs. He didn't really have to in this game, and you still got things done. He must have done a good job that way.
Well, when you say managing, I would think I always think in terms of clock management, being smart with the ball, and I think he's done that in almost every game that kid has played quarterback in. I think he's been very stingy with the football and done a nice job of that. I think that's why he's a little bit more mature for his age than people give him credit for. The fact that he didn't have to run or get to run, I think it probably happened both ways a little bit. I think they took some of it away, and I think there was things that we took away without calling it because we were successful at other things. So, and then you look in the throw game, and he was pretty accurate. There's things he can improve on. I mean, he missed on 2 deep balls that would have given him some big stats, some big numbers. But when you take shots like that, that's about what you're going to hit 1 out of 3. And, I think you take shots, it backs people off. I think it sends a message. Sometimes you get PIs. So I think there's positive things to throwing it deep that can happen for you even if you don't complete it.
Coach Harsin said in his press conference again, we have guys who are thinking football players. And so a lot of them will come to us with plays.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, we don't use them. Some of them work out. Does that happen with your guys?
Uh-huh.
They suggest stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
How often do they get under the...
How often does it stick up on the board? I don't know. Maybe similar to his. I don't know. I think sometimes no, they do. But I think sometimes the other thing that you get is when you get some ideas that are well thought out by a player and they've researched it for a little bit, I think sometimes that spurs it. You may not do it exactly like they present it to you, but I think that sometimes spurs different thought or outside the box thinking by the coaches. And they're thinking, okay, that's close, but the protection's not right. We're going to get drilled right here. We've got to tweak the protection, and then that route combination is really good. So I think it spurs thinking by all of us, and that's something that we all welcome.
Matt, I think I read a tweet by your AD yesterday. I think it was something about being out there with the students real early.
Yeah, we were.
And I was going to ask you, were you part of that? And if
Uh-huh.
so, describe that experience and if it's fun or...
Yeah, it was good. We were there on about 6:45 this morning, and with the herd, and those students are in line early getting their student tickets, and that line was long, and we got there, thought it was starting then, and they let them in early because there were so many in line, and Mr. Hartwell and I just brought donuts and passed them out and said thank you, and just was being able to be around them for about a half an hour, and the staff of the herd and the job that they do is very much appreciated by myself, but by our players as well. They're a big part of having a home field advantage is the student section, and they're loud, and hopefully this Friday night they'll be exactly what they always are, is really, really loud and a definite advantage to playing at home. And it should be a great crowd and Friday night atmosphere and all that, so it should be great.
One thing with Boise is you always have to be wary of trick plays. They
Yeah.
executed one against Colorado State, 53-yard pass from a wide receiver. How do you prepare your players for situations like that?
You just I think they think they need to be aware of down and distance, field position, when things are more than likely to come. Boise over the years has been very successful in those trick plays because they've executed them, and they've come for big chunks and big plays, and a lot of the times it's been on a national stage, and they've done a great job. They do a great job of executing it. I would assume they practice them quite a bit. I think a lot of times with those kind of plays too, you carry them, week after week after week, and sometimes it's there and presents itself, and sometimes you carry it until the next week too. But there's no question that that they've been very successful. I think the key to us is, we're going to practice all the ones we've seen, but there's probably one or two that we ain't we ain't seen. There, I said ain't. I'm in trouble now.
What is it that Boise does to be such a consistently good program through coaching changes and everything over the years?
Well, you know, 2 of those coaching changes have been internal. I mean, in terms of Chris Peterson, really Dan Hawkins, excuse me, there's 3. I mean, all 3 of those coaching changes from Dirk Cutter to Dan Hawkins, Hawk was on his staff, Chris Peterson and Brian Harsin were on Dan Hawkins' staff, and then, you know, Brian Harsin was Chris Peterson's offense coordinator for his initial one and for a long, long time, and then has come back. So there's continuity. I think the first thing is continuity. I think the second thing is they do a tremendous job of evaluating and recruiting guys to fit their culture. And then I think there are very, very good coaches that scheme those players' talents around this, their offensive and defensive schemes. I don't think it all has to stay the same. I don't think you recruit to fit scheme. I think you scheme around your talent. But they find the guys that fit that culture, and they're blue-collar guys. They're tough guys. They're smart. You know they're smart because they're very multiple on both sides of the ball. And they've built I would assume they've built a tremendous development and practice culture there that creates toughness, creates smart football players that Craig just alluded to, as maybe Coach Harsin was saying, they have a bunch of guys that think and that are smart and football junkies, and I think that's why you have seen that program. It's one of the best in America. I mean, for a long time, 20 years plus, one of the winningest programs in America. Whether it's in whatever conference they're in, or it's against Power 5 teams, or it's in big bowl games. So a lot of respect for them.
Speaking of tweets, do you guys have rules about your players using those kind of media?
Twitter? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just I don't try to – the more rules you have, the more you have to enforce. And I think we have guidelines that I like to give them. I'm active on it. We have many players that are active on it, and we follow them, we watch them. But I think the biggest thing is that they understand that, once you put it out there, it's out there. And to me, it's just like speaking with the media. It's, there's things that are within your family that you don't talk about out in public. And so you don't tweet about them out in public. You're always very supportive of your teammates, and you're always complimentary of your opponents. And I think as long as you're smart and understanding what you put out there, I think it's part of this day and age and this culture. And I don't think I don't believe right now in handcuffing them. I think they've done a nice job of it so far. We learn how to delete tweets real quick sometimes, but I think it's just being having social responsibility. I'm trying to teach a daughter to do that right now too. And these guys, I think these guys have done a good job though of what they put out there. And you just have to be careful. And you have to understand, as soon as you favorite or as soon as you retweet something, that means I agree. So you need to make sure that it always represents, yourself, your name, your reputation, and this football program in a very positive way. If you're a senior and you have aspirations of the NFL, you'll have your whole history. If you're a senior and you're getting into the job market, that prospective employer is going to have your social media history. They're going to see what you portray yourself to be. So it's very important. Nothing else? All right, guys. Thanks.